Kody Pass, and that's the only thing that ties me to Flagstaff anymore.
Hi, baby.
Hi, y'all.
Hi.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
It was as if the Brown family had reached the inevitable breaking point, the moment when all the cracks, all the betrayals, all the whispered accusations finally aligned into one undeniable truth: there was no going back. Not to the plural marriage they once pretended to hold sacred. Not to the idea of unity. Not even to the illusion of family that had held them together on camera for over a decade. By the time Janelle's quiet investigation into the finances made its way into the family's private group texts, the ones that still had Kody and Robin in them, the mood shifted. What had been months of passive-aggressive silences and carefully worded checking-in messages turned into blunt, unfiltered confrontation. Christine, who had long ago abandoned the hope of fixing the marriage, told Janelle flat out, "You need to protect yourself. He's never going to put you first." The public chatter mirrored the private reality. Fans dissected Janelle's every social media post, her subtle digs in interviews, the absence of Kody in her family photos. On Reddit threads and Facebook fan groups, there was a growing consensus: Janelle was no longer quietly loyal. She was quietly building her exit strategy. And then came the moment that couldn't be walked back. The family meeting that wasn't in what was supposed to be a simple sit-down to discuss Kody Pass and property taxes. Janelle brought her laptop. She had printed records, highlighted discrepancies, and had a neat little folder labeled receipts, both literal and metaphorical. Kody came in defensive, already muttering about misunderstandings and people turning things into drama. Robin arrived late, saying she had been on a call, though no one believed it. Janelle didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply slid a sheet of paper across the table toward Kody. "This," she said, "is where the household account shows $75,000 withdrawn for my sister-wife's closet inventory. And this," she pointed to the next page, "is where the kids' college fund contributions stopped." Robin's eyes darted between the pages, her lips pressing together until they disappeared into a thin line. Kody leaned back, crossing his arms, the picture of a man trying to regain control of a room he no longer owned. Christine, seated on the far end of the table, didn't bother hiding her smirk. "It's all there, Kody," she said. "Every dollar. You can't spin this." The tension was suffocating. Every person in that room understood this wasn't just about money, it was about trust. It was about years of favoritism, about children left out in the cold while Robin's household thrived. It was about the truth no one wanted to say out loud: Robin wasn't just the favorite wife, she was the one who got everything, while the rest were left to scrape together whatever they could. The public backlash hits by the time the episode featuring that tense sit-down aired on TLC, the editing couldn't soften the blow. Viewers saw it all: the paper trail, the defensiveness, the way Robin's voice shook when she tried to defend the spending. Social media exploded. "Robin doesn't even look sorry," one Twitter user wrote. "She looks like she's mad she got caught," another added. Fan podcasts dissected every frame. TikTok creators spliced clips of Robin's boutique photo shoots with the bank statement screenshots that had leaked through fan groups. Even entertainment news outlets, the ones that usually just recapped the show, were running headlines like, "Sister Wives star faces questions over $75,000 spending." And Kody? Instead of doing damage control, he doubled down. In a cameo video that quickly went viral, he said, "People don't understand how much it costs to run a family this big." The problem was, people did understand, they just didn't see running a family as the same thing as funding Robin's boutique dream while other kids were applying for scholarships. The silence that spoke louder after that: Janelle stopped taking Kody's calls. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. As one source close to the family told In Touch, she's done trying to reason with him.
We're never going to have a marriage relationship anymore. This is my story too, and I have the right to tell my story.
Fans noticed she stopped liking Robin's posts. She wasn't posting about family time anymore, only about her bed and breakfast, her friends, and her solo travels. In interviews, when asked about the other wives, she'd give polite, vague answers. But those who knew her well said it was calculated. She wasn't going to be the one to burn the bridge, but she wasn't building on it either. Christine, meanwhile, was thriving in Utah, posting videos of cooking with her kids, laughing, living. She'd become the public face of the Life After Kody movement, inspiring other women in plural marriages to consider their own independence. The final image, if you were to freeze this chapter of the Brown family saga into a single image, it wouldn't be a screaming match or a dramatic walkout. It would be Janelle, sitting at that table, sliding the paper across to Kody with steady hands. It would be the moment Robin realized she couldn't talk her way out of the numbers. It would be Christine watching the exchange with quiet satisfaction. And it would be Kody, caught between indignation and panic, realizing that for the first time in years, maybe ever, he wasn't the one holding all the cards. This was the reckoning. And no amount of spin could make it go away. The scene in the Brown family's story had shifted. By now, the dream of sister wives, the vision of one big, united family under one faith, one man, and one purpose, was over. Not in whispers, not in speculation, but in the plain daylight of public record. Christine had left first, walking away with the quiet determination of a woman who had been planning her escape for years. Her announcement, aired in season 17, had been bittersweet, not a fiery breakup, but a line in the sand. She had said it clearly, she could no longer be in a marriage without love, without partnership, without trust. And when she moved to Utah, you could see something in her eyes that fans hadn't seen in a long time: peace. Janelle was next. She had always been the practical one, the budget keeper, the negotiator, the one who could bridge the chasms between Kody and the other wives. But by the time season 18 rolled out, that bridge was ashes. The COVID restrictions, Kody's refusal to see her kids, the way he dismissed Gabriel and Garrison's pain, it all cracked something in her. Her quiet frustration had boiled over into public words: he's made his choice, and it's not us. Fans didn't have to read between the lines anymore. The lines were spelled out on screen. When the reunion episodes aired, the body language told the truth before the mouths did. Kody sat close to Robin, hand clasped in hers, eyes narrowed in defensiveness. Janelle and Christine sat apart, not hostile, but done. Mary, still in the picture at that point, sat in the space between, both physically and emotionally. And then there was Mary. Hers was a different kind of heartbreak, slower, quieter, more suffocating. The catfishing scandal years earlier had never been healed, only buried. And over time, the burial became a permanent wall. By season 18's tell-all, Kody's words to Mary were some of the coldest fans had ever heard: I don't consider myself married to Mary. On camera. In front of the world. Without hesitation. That moment became a cultural turning point for Sister Wives viewers. It wasn't just the words, it was the way Mary sat there, her face barely moving, holding herself still as if movement would break her. Fans flooded social media with outrage. For many, it confirmed what they'd suspected, that Kody's emotional connection to anyone outside Robin had evaporated years ago. And Robin. By now, her position in the family was undeniable. She was the only wife left in a functional relationship with Kody, the sole gatekeeper to his time, attention, and loyalty. Viewers remembered how she had once cried on camera about wanting the big family, about wanting to bring everyone together. But the reality had played out in reverse. The family wasn't coming together, it was breaking apart, and she was at the center of Kody's orbit. Public chatter grew louder. Clips from past seasons resurfaced on TikTok and YouTube, moments that fans now saw as foreshadowing. Robin's tears when she joined the family. Her private meetings with Kody about finances. The moments she encouraged him to enforce rules the other wives struggled with. In the early days, these moments had blended into the larger chaos of polygamy. Now, they stood out in stark relief. By the time the Sister Wives reunion episodes wrapped, the scorecard was public knowledge: Christine, gone, thriving, remarried. Janelle, gone, building her independence. Mary, officially done, moving on with her own ventures. Kody, down to one wife, alienated from several children, facing public backlash. Robyn, the last wife standing, but no longer in the sisterhood she once claimed to cherish. The reckoning wasn't just in the family, it was in the audience. The fans who had once tuned in for a love story about faith and unity now stayed for the unmasking of a man they saw as controlling, hypocritical, and blind to his own favoritism. They dissected every scene, pulled apart every quote, and left comment sections blazing with their judgments. And here was the final twist. For all the years Kody had preached about the strength of plural marriage, the last chapters had proven something else entirely. When the emotional bonds break, the structure collapses. And when the structure collapses, there's no scripture, no covenant, no decades of shared history that can glue it back together. As season 19 loomed on the horizon, one thing was certain: the family we met in 2010 was gone. What remained was something entirely different, raw, fractured, and stripped of the illusions that once held it together. And maybe, that was the most honest version we had ever seen. It's one thing for fans to suspect favoritism. It's another when the pattern becomes so undeniable that even the most loyal viewers stop making excuses. And in season 17's rawest moments, and in the months that followed online, that's exactly what happened. By now, Christine was gone. Janelle was pulling away. Mary had been emotionally sidelined for years. And yet, in confessionals and candid moments, Kody kept circling back to the same defense, that Robyn was the only wife who was loyal to him. It wasn't subtle. It was a public line in the sand. One wife was the partner. The others were problems to be managed. Viewers dissected the footage. The way Kody's body language softened when Robyn entered a scene. The way his voice sharpened when speaking to Janelle or Christine about accountability, but melted when Robyn described her stress. Every pause, every glance, every sigh, it all became part of a larger public autopsy of the marriage dynamics. And the more the audience analyzed, the more they began to see the through line: holidays celebrated with Robyn's children, while other kids watched from a distance. Trips planned around Robyn's needs, while the others were expected to compromise. Emotional energy poured into one branch of the family, leaving the others to run on fumes. Even the infamous COVID rules confrontation took on a sharper meaning in hindsight. Fans remembered how Kody described Robyn's home as the gold standard for compliance, the safe house, while openly criticizing other wives for being careless. What wasn't lost on the audience was how those rules seemed to align perfectly with protecting Robyn's household access to him, while shutting down in-person contact with Janelle's and Christine's children. And then there was that season 17 sit-down at Coyote Pass. Cameras caught Kody at full volume, accusing Janelle of not supporting him. What didn't make it to the cutting room floor was just how physically distant they were sitting, a literal gulf of folding chairs and desert wind between them. When the argument turned to loyalty, Janelle didn't flinch. She didn't yell back. She didn't crumble. She simply said she wouldn't choose sides, not between him and the kids. It was a line that echoed across the fandom, because it exposed the rawest truth of all: this wasn't about marriage. It was about a father demanding allegiance over love. Public chatter after the episode was relentless. Thread after thread on Reddit, Facebook groups, and YouTube recaps debated whether Kody had crossed from hurt husband into something more controlling. And whether Robyn, sitting silent in these moments, was protecting him or quietly letting his image burn to the ground. By the time the season's final episodes aired, the Brown family wasn't just fractured, it was publicly unrecognizable. 3 wives living separate lives. One wife holding the marriage ring. And a patriarch who had gone from defending plural unity to admitting he no longer had the will to fix it. But the story didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. Because the internet and the fans were just getting started. Behind closed doors, Robyn is allegedly threatening to drop a tell-all memoir. But insiders say this isn't about truth, it's about survival. Because just as she's preparing her misunderstood victim narrative, Janelle is quietly loading her own arsenal: bank logs, receipts, contribution breakdowns, the kind of black and white proof you can't spin with a teary confessional. And here's the kicker, Janelle's been advised to wait. Not out of fear, out of strategy. Because one wrong move and this could look like revenge. But the right move? It'll look like accountability. Yellow circle the stakes. This isn't a plotline you can wrap in a reunion episode. TLC executives are reportedly panicking over narrative liability, worried that if the truth comes out, it will prove they knowingly portrayed Robyn as financially equal while real records told a different story. A leaked producer email even warned the network, if the numbers leak first, we lose control of the story. High voltage the players, Janelle Ecom on the outside, allegedly working with 2 attorneys, triple-checking her documents. Robyn, already courting publishers, lining up NDAs, and pitching her side as the woman America misunderstood. Christine, reportedly pushing for an independent audit. Mary, quiet but watching. Insiders say she feels vindicated. Kody paranoid, allegedly blaming everyone but himself. Collision the rumor bomb, it's not just about cash. Sources claim Janelle has years of off-camera texts, voicemails, and production notes that directly contradict what aired. If those drop alongside the financials, Robyn's carefully crafted image could be obliterated in a single news cycle. Direct hit the emotional punch, fans are already splicing old clips side by side, Robyn softly claiming she didn't understand the finances versus Janelle's blunt receipts. Captions read, "The real wife versus the real deal." The comment sections are brutal. The patience is gone. Bomb, why now? One family confidant put it simply, Robyn's not reacting, she's anticipating. She's trying to rewrite the ending before the middle is even public. But here's the dangerous truth, in 2025, the first story out isn't always the one that sticks. It's the one backed by evidence. And Janelle? She has the evidence. Mantelpiece clock, the clock is ticking, we're hours, maybe minutes, from impact. Robyn's defense is an emotional memoir. Janelle's is a cold spreadsheet. One tells a story. The other tells the math. And when the truth finally hits daylight, it won't just be the Brown family's public image that changes. It'll be a reckoning. For them. For the network. And for every viewer who believed what they were sold. Question is, will Robyn's story land first, or will Janelle's receipts bury it? Drop your take in the comments. And don't blink, because the moment either of them presses send, the Sister Wives brand as you know it is over. By the time season 18 aired, the Brown family's cracks were no longer hairline fractures, they were canyons. And the footage we saw was more than reality TV drama, it was the slow, public unraveling of a family that had spent years telling America they were united in faith, purpose, and love. Janelle's Christmas 2022 fallout with Kody had already stunned viewers. In a tense living room confrontation, captured in real time, she told him plainly that she'd rather stay separated than keep fighting. And in that moment, her voice didn't waver. This was not the Janelle who once bent over backward to smooth over tension. This was a woman done being sidelined, done being blamed for a relationship that only one person seemed willing to maintain. Then came the interviews, the on-camera confessionals that played like raw diary entries. Janelle admitted what fans had long suspected, she hadn't seen Kody in weeks, and she didn't really miss him. Viewers clipped that segment and replayed it on social media, not because it was scandalous, but because it was freeing. Christine, now completely divorced from Kody, was thriving in her own storyline. She'd moved to Utah, started dating again, and began filming the lighter, more joyful parts of her life. But even from the sidelines, she could see the fallout with Janelle coming. In her confessional, Christine warned that Kody's inability to nurture his relationships was going to cost him, not just his wives, but his children too. The children's perspectives were perhaps the most devastating to watch. Gabriel's account of his last conversation with his father, when Kody forgot his own son's birthday during COVID restrictions, became a defining moment for viewers. It wasn't gossip. It wasn't rumor. It was Gabriel, on camera, saying he felt abandoned. And the pain in his voice wasn't something you could edit away. Online, the reaction was fierce. Fan threads lit up with timestamps, quotes, and side-by-side comparisons of Kody's interactions with Robin's children versus his own with Janelle and Christine's kids. It wasn't a theory anymore, it was playing out on national television. Even Mary, who for years had been Kody's most loyal defender despite their estrangement, seemed to reach a quiet tipping point. Her confessionals took on a sharper edge. She began acknowledging the emotional distance that had been there for over a decade, and fans noticed she'd stopped speaking about working things out. Robin's role became the center of fan debates. She insisted in multiple episodes that she wanted the family to be together, that she was tired of the drama. But the clips told a different story. Viewers saw her tearfully say she wanted the big picture, yet they also noticed how often Kody's frustrations with the other wives seemed to echo Robin's own complaints. By the end of season 18, what we were seeing wasn't just the decline of a plural marriage, it was a reckoning. Years of grievances, once buried under the pressure to present unity, were being spoken aloud. And for the first time, fans weren't just reacting to drama. They were watching a documented case study in how favoritism, neglect, and unresolved conflict could hollow out an entire family from the inside. Kody himself summed it up in a rare moment of honesty: "I don't know how to fix this anymore." For some viewers, it was too little, too late. For others, it was proof that even Kody knew the breaking point had already passed. By the time the cameras returned for the next season, something in the air had shifted, heavy, unspoken, impossible to miss. Christine was gone. That was the first fracture everyone could see. But what came after wasn't just about one wife leaving, it was about the way Kody handled the ones who stayed. The pandemic rules, the isolation, the stark contrast between who was included and who was left behind, all of it had been documented in raw, unfiltered detail on the show. We saw Janelle sitting on her couch, mask dangling in her hand, saying she didn't think Kody's rules were realistic. We saw Gabriel and Garrison openly say they hadn't seen their dad in months, that he'd stopped coming around because they wouldn't cut off all their friends. And we saw Kody's response, not in tears, but in frustration. The infamous scene in Janelle's rental kitchen was still burned into fans' minds. Kody stood there, his voice sharp, accusing her boys of being the problem, of putting him in a position where he had to choose. It wasn't just an argument, it was a line in the sand. And as millions of viewers watched, they knew which side he'd already picked. Narrator's reflection: it was more than a father drawing boundaries, it was a father turning away. For some, it looked like the moment the role of dad became negotiable, and the relationship, conditional. The tension bled into every frame after that. Family gatherings became smaller, more selective. Mary's confessionals took on a brittle edge, her voice even, but her eyes telling a different story. She admitted she wasn't part of Kody's inner circle anymore, that they didn't function as a married couple. And yet, she stayed, not for romance, but for faith, for loyalty, for something she couldn't quite put into words. Fans debated it endlessly online. Was it devotion? Was it fear of letting go? Or was it the hope that someday, the man they'd all followed into this life might remember the promises he'd made? But if there was hope, it was hard to find in the scenes at Robin's house. Cameras caught the warmth there: kids laughing, holidays celebrated, Kody relaxed and present. And when Janelle, Christine, or Mary tried to plan something, the hesitations came. The scheduling conflicts. The sense that somehow, it was always easier for him to be in one place. By the reunion taping, the cracks were unmissable. One wife gone, another halfway out the door, and a third openly saying she was living separate lives from her husband. And through it all, Kody doubled down, saying he'd been betrayed, that he was done playing the peacemaker. Narrator's reflection: in his mind, the fractures were their doing. In theirs, they were the result of years of imbalance. Either way, the break was no longer looming, it was here. It started quietly, almost clinically, like a surgeon pulling on gloves before a high-risk operation. Janelle wasn't looking for trouble. She wasn't hunting for scandal. She was doing what she had done for years, managing numbers, balancing books, keeping the chaos of a plural family at least partially contained. She'd always been the spreadsheet wife. The one who could look at a string of numbers and see the story they told. And on this particular afternoon, the numbers whispered first, then began to scream. At first glance, the charges looked harmless, a few thousand here, maybe $1,500 there. Descriptions so vague they could have been anything: interior upgrades, childcare, home essentials. In the old days, she might have waved them off. But something about the pattern made her pause. It wasn't just what was being spent, it was when. There was a rhythm to it. A recurring cycle of transactions, like a heartbeat she didn't recognize. Some were monthly, others appeared in large, sudden bursts, big enough to make her heart skip. And then came the names. Not Walmart. Not Home Depot. Not even local service providers she knew from Flagstaff. No, these were companies she'd never seen before. A high-end interior design firm in Flagstaff. A specialty toy dealer in Utah. That one stopped her cold. The Utah dealer's timestamp aligned perfectly with the period when rumors had swirled about Robin redecorating her infamous doll room. The room fans once estimated cost over $200,000. The timing was too perfect to ignore. Commentary: in any family, money is a sensitive topic. In a plural marriage, where every dollar is supposed to be a shared resource, unapproved spending isn't just a mistake, it's an act of betrayal. It sends a message: my wants matter more than our needs. And betrayal, when written in numbers, is cold, clinical, and undeniable. Janelle's breath caught. She wasn't just staring at questionable expenses. She was staring at years of sacrifices, her sacrifices, Christine's sacrifices, even Mary's, possibly siphoned into one household while the others were left scrambling. She thought back to the years she'd said no to vacations because the family needed to save for property taxes. The times she'd watched Christine stretch grocery money until it nearly snapped. The times Mary had swallowed her pride and done without. And now this: a luxury decor, designer trinkets, and toy collections? No. She couldn't ignore it. In the past, maybe she would have brought it to a family meeting, the way she had with smaller issues. But that safety net was gone. The family wasn't family anymore. They were fractured islands, each keeping their distance to avoid the tidal waves of old wounds. So instead of calling a meeting, Janelle went into what Christine would later call battle mode. She screenshotted every suspicious log. Backed up every file to an external hard drive. And then, without hesitation, she sent the first batch of receipts to Christine. Christine's reply was instant and sharp: she's been living off us this whole time. It was less a question and more a statement of rage disguised as clarity. By nightfall, even Mary, who had been walking her own quiet, solitary path, had been looped in. For all their differences now, money was the universal trigger. No one, not even the most distant sister-wife, could hear the words financial deception and stay neutral. And from there, it didn't just spread, it snowballed. Commentary: this was more than gossip. This was a shift in the gravitational pull of the Brown family's fractured orbit. Because once a paper trail exists, the story stops being about opinion. Numbers don't roll their eyes. Numbers don't deny or spin. They sit there, black and white, daring you to prove them wrong. But just as the women began to build momentum, something strange happened, the kind of twist that only seems to happen when the stakes are already sky-high. At exactly 11:03 p.m., as Janelle debated whether to send the entire document set to her attorney, her phone lit up. The message was short. It came from an unknown number, one later traced back to a contact known to be close to Robin. If you publish anything, she'll go public with everything. In an instant, the air shifted. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was war. Because that everything, everyone knew what it could mean. For years, rumors had swirled that Robin kept meticulous notes, diaries, voicemails, even recordings of conversations. the kind that could slice open old wounds and rewrite family history in an instant. The idea that she might use them wasn't just a threat. It was a promise that if Janelle pushed, Robin would push back, hard. And the thing about Robin? She's not afraid to burn a bridge if she feels cornered. It started quietly, almost clinically, like a surgeon pulling on gloves before a high-risk operation. Janelle wasn't looking for trouble. She wasn't hunting for scandal. She was doing what she had done for years, managing numbers, balancing books, keeping the chaos of a plural family at least partially contained. She'd always been the spreadsheet wife. The one who could look at a string of numbers and see the story they told. And on this particular afternoon, the numbers whispered first, then began to scream. At first glance, the charges looked harmless, a few thousand here, maybe $1,500 there. Descriptions so vague they could have been anything: interior upgrades, childcare, home essentials. In the old days, she might have waved them off. But something about the pattern made her pause. It wasn't just what was being spent, it was when. There was a rhythm to it. A recurring cycle of transactions, like a heartbeat she didn't recognize. Some were monthly, others appeared in large, sudden bursts, big enough to make her heart skip. And then came the names. Not Walmart. Not Home Depot. Not even local service providers she knew from Flagstaff. No, these were companies she'd never seen before. A high-end interior design firm in Flagstaff. A specialty toy dealer in Utah. That one stopped her cold. The Utah dealer's timestamp aligned perfectly with the period when rumors had swirled about Robin redecorating her infamous doll room. The room fans once estimated cost over $200,000. The timing was too perfect to ignore. Commentary: in any family, money is a sensitive topic. In a plural marriage, where every dollar is supposed to be a shared resource, unapproved spending isn't just a mistake, it's an act of betrayal. It sends a message: my wants matter more than our needs. And betrayal, when written in numbers, is cold, clinical, and undeniable. Janelle's breath caught. She wasn't just staring at questionable expenses. She was staring at years of sacrifices, her sacrifices, Christine's sacrifices, even Mary's, possibly siphoned into one household while the others were left scrambling. She thought back to the years she'd said no to vacations because the family needed to save for property taxes. The times she'd watched Christine stretch grocery money until it nearly snapped. The times Mary had swallowed her pride and done without. And now this: a luxury decor, designer trinkets, and toy collections? No. She couldn't ignore it. In the past, maybe she would have brought it to a family meeting, the way she had with smaller issues. But that safety net was gone. The family wasn't family